Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. How's it going out there? Um, Sorry for the delay tonight. Mercury retrograde has already got its claws into me, and I've had to do a few things that have been kind of tricky today. I decided to work with somebody to try to kind of redo my website, give my website a facelift, and go really well. So I've been working on trying to save my website today. I mean, not that it's in any danger of falling off the map, but definitely working on uh, putting it back together in a way that's meaningful and doable. So there's that. And I went to schedule tonight's stream, and as you can see in the right-hand column or the right-hand side of the screen, I use Zoom to stream live on Friday night or Friday day, and then Sunday night. And then Monday through Thursday, I use OBS. And the reason is because I use the OBS for 15 Minutes of Flame, and then I streamed that to the 15 Minutes of Flame YouTube channel. And this one I use primarily for astrology. So anyway, my subscription with Zoom ran out. So I went to go program everything. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't have the same kind of perks that I had, so I had to sign back up again. So anyway, that's why I'm late, but I'm here, and so are you. We got FUP77, and Robert Phoenix is in tonight. Hi, Robert. Isla, there's Scoobs, Cheeky Monkey, there's Jennifer. Flip this, yo. I like that. There's Jenny, Ani, there's Joan, Luann Hoffman. Hey, these freaking energies suck. Tesmerk, there we go. One, good evening. Isla, husband is IT, phones, computers, all going down. Never fails during Mercury retro. Hey, there's Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. So I'm just going to hang out for a little bit and give you sort of some updates. So what's been happening? I did a show today with Jay Widener and Yvonne Palermo. Jay has a new show that he's doing with Yvonne. They've sort of teamed up. And Yvonne is kind of a new person in my world. I've never met her before. And so it was cool. I haven't done anything with Jay in a long time. And Jay and I, of course, we go back and to 2013 when I was doing the shows over at Gaia. And we talked a little bit about that. And, look, Jay's had some heat. And he has had a few videos where he's, I think, doing his best to take some accountability for what happened with Corey and David. And there are some people who think that, well, it's not enough. I think it's a good start. And I think at this point it's probably enough. I mean, I like Jay, and I think he is somebody. I think we're better if Jay is actually involved in broadcasting and getting stuff out there. I just think we are. I'd rather have that Jay, that level of him, and some kind of level of accountability for what went on versus no Jay at all. That's just me. Anyway, that show should be airing fairly soon. It's being edited right now. And I got into a lot of the eclipse information with them. And Yvonne is very new to astrology. So some of the stuff that I was kind of putting out there was, different for her to understand and wrap her head around. So it was an interesting experience. And I think you guys will like it. Last night, I did a Facebook Live, my first Facebook Live, and it's the group that's associated with this show, the Sunday Night Astro Live. So we did a Facebook Live last night. We went about 35, 40 minutes. It was pretty cool. And it was like breaking news. The Jeffrey Epstein thing happened. We can talk about that tonight. There's a lot that's been going on. We've got the eclipse energies, the earthquake energies, And we could talk about Epson. We get some birthdays to look at. There's a lot to cover tonight, as always, and I'm certainly glad to be here with you, decoding the stars on the Sunday night's Astro Live with Robert Phoenix. Let's see who else is in the chat. We've got Robin. Hi, Robin. There's Rita. Hey, Rita. And Tanya Brooks. The gang's all here. Well, not all the gang, but enough. There's a lot, I think. So where do we want to start tonight? Let me just jump right in since I'm running behind. And why don't we get into the chart of the moment, which I have pulled just recently here off to the side. Let me grab that and let me bring that front and center. One sec. Where are we? Here we go. What's this? Let's see. Yep. Okay. There it is. It was the chart of the moments. Yeah, I just flashed on that band Asia. What do I have here? I've got, this shouldn't be on. I've got OBS on. I don't need that. I guess it's okay. I'm not streaming. I can watch myself. Anyway, let's go back to this chart. Yeah, so I had a flash of Asia there. I went back to the 80s for a minute. God, what a time. What a time. We were in a very different part of the universe, aren't we? Okay, this is it. This is what you want to pay attention to. We've got Sagittarius on the ascendant, 27 degrees. That's where this usually starts off on Sunday nights, unless we get a bit of a later start, in which case we start off with Capricorn on the ascendant. We're catching just the tail end of the 27th degree of Sagittarius, right at the galactic center, beaming right at you, live from the galactic center. Of course, there's that Saturn-Pluto conjunction still there, coming off kind of the post-eclipse intensity, which I really think manifested in the earthquake stuff. Now, I have the earthquake chart, and we can punch that up. I put that up on the 11th house side of things over on Facebook. So for those of you who aren't over there, I'll bring it up and we can go through that earthquake chart, which is really, really interesting. The one that happened last night. And man, I was watching this basketball game from Las Vegas, and all of a sudden the camera started going like this, and then you could see the big scoreboard start to go back and forth. I'm like, holy shit, they're having an earthquake. And I was watching it real time, live, right? Because sports are one of those things where it's actually happening now. And it was happening, it was in Las Vegas. And of course, the earthquake was in Ridgecrest. So that's 2 earthquakes in Ridgecrest. Don't you think that's a little odd that both the epicenters of those earthquakes were in Ridgecrest, which is where China Lake is? And we talked about that today. And Jay and I, and we talked about, the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases. Theoretically, they could even have, there's supposed to be even a cloning center at China Lake. And Jay said that there's a port there. I'm like, wow, what kind of a port are we talking about? Are we talking about a port where there's kind of an underground river or lock or something like that? Is that what we're talking about? Or is it a spaceport? I really didn't get any clarity from Jay. He said that supposedly there's a port there. So both of the quakes were centered around that Ridgecrest area, which is kind of mind-blowing, actually. So let's get into this chart. We'll talk more about the earthquake and the post-eclipse energies and what might be happening there. So here we've got the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Again, it's kind of like the story that I talked about last week, and the time for change. The time for change and to plug into change, and to use the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, to use the Saturnian energies of discipline, structure, order, right? Getting your life together, getting your shit together, getting your bodies together. And you get further with, in some ways, austerity, or I don't want to use the word denial. It brings up too many like funny connotations and wrong. But I would say more austerity, more discipline, more structured limitation. Like that's where the reward is right now in terms of this aspect. Transforming, right? Pluto transforms, and Saturn tends to be based around or built around habits, routines, disciplines, right? That's what Saturn does. It's like work. You get up and do it every day, right? That's very Saturnian. And so with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, what we have is we have the potential for transforming ourselves through structured, ordered, and disciplined activity in our lives. And with Neptune here, which is the sextile, that's the spiritual payoff. And the spiritual payoff manifests itself in greater connection to the macro. No, it's not really the macro. The macro is kind of greater connection to the God within, right? I mean, that's really what this is about. And, you know, I talked about it last week, and I've been talking about it ever since this alignment has been in effect. And I'll probably continue to talk about it because I think it's important. It's really, really important. On the other hand, with the Jupiter conjunct square to Neptune, what are we seeing there? We're seeing, of course, this weird sort of clusterfuck with the truth and trying to get through the truth and swim through the truth, navigating it, the fog of truth. Also, Jupiter in Sagittarius tends to be a little indulgent. And if we have a Jupiter square to Neptune, we're not really being rewarded for our indulgences. It's not happening. This is where the theoretical payoff is, not here, right? I mean, if you want to get obliterated, man, Jupiter Neptune square is great. You know, obliteration is a path to enlightenment, but you have to be prepared for, you know, the obliterating part, right? The left-handed path is about obliteration. So there's a left-handed path here, and there's a right-handed path here. And it feels like in some ways we're kind of going through that in the world right now, right? Like, I think the Jupiter square to Neptune is where everything is permitted. Everything is permitted. Everything is permitted. It's all love. Everything is permitted. Love, 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 love. Doesn't really matter. You know, it doesn't really matter if you are a transgender, demonically possessed drag queen, story time reader. It doesn't really matter. It's all fine. It's all good. You know, let your kids crawl all over, you know, the drag queen storyteller, right? It's, you know, hey, why not? You know, how come you don't accept that? You know, what's wrong with you? You asshole. You're a bigot. You're ignorant. You're hateful. You're transphobic. That's the Jupiter square to Neptune because it's all supposed to be allowed, right? It's all, and if you don't allow, and this is what's happening. This is where it gets really dangerous. Oh, look who's here. Oh, he's going to step on the computer. Oh my God. It's Godzilla. It's Jasper Zilla. Holy Christ. Pardon me. Man. Jasper came storming onto the show tonight. Come on, Jasper. You got to mellow out, buddy. Oh, 1 second here. There we go. The edges of my reality are being exposed, also known as the ceiling. Anyway, but this is the Jupiter Neptune square, and I hate to proselytize, but it's a slippery slope. We're getting into slippery slopedom. Who's the mayor of slippery slopedom? You want to get over here? Come on. There you go. Come on, let's go. This is your place, right? It's your place. Mayor Pete. I wonder if Mayor Pete is the mayor of slippery slopedom. All right. Well, then here, you know what? Here you go. It's right there. It's right there. Come on. Pardon me, tonight's broadcast has been interrupted by a needy orange tabby. Okay, there we go. So it was funny. Yvonne from this show today had never seen Jasper in action. She was cracking up. She's like, oh my God, what's happening here? It was very funny. Anyway, but this idea, okay, this idea that it's all loved is, I think, really, really dangerous. It's not all love. Sometimes it's manipulation. it is manipulation. Oh yeah, it's just all Jupiter square Neptune. Oh, it's all, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, come on, it's okay. Yeah, you know, let your kid go home with drag queen tranny story hour guy. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Oh, it's just you know one human being sharing love with another. Oh, your child's not a child. Don't you know that? No, first of all, your child isn't a boy or a girl. It's not. Your child's not a boy or a girl, and it's not even really a child. Aren't you aware of that? I mean, a child is just an arbitrary kind of designation that we put on these little beings, you know. And when we put the word child on them, we're limiting them. We're putting them in a very limited kind of definition of who they are and how they're going to evolve. And how close-minded can you be? So if they're not children, then they should be open to experience, whatever that experience is, right? Even if it's like loving somebody who is 3 times their age and dressed up in pancake and mascara and enormous fake boobs. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all love. Everything is permitted now. That's the Jupiter-Neptune square, because that's where it's going. I'm sorry. You know, consider me closed-minded. I see where it's going. I know where it's going. I saw this years ago. I saw it when I first started doing my website. I started to write about this stuff. And I said, you better watch out, because once it goes here, then it's going to go here, and then it's going to go here. And then ultimately, it's going to be about pedophilia and what they call, was it now, like, you know, young, mature love, or whatever the fuck they're calling it, right? Jupiter-Neptune square. That's what's happening. Saturn-Pluto conjunction, sextile Neptune, that's a different model. We have these two competing models going on. One says, everything's fine, just let it all happen. Everything's permitted. You know, why should you care? Why should there be any constraint or any kinds of judgment? Ooh, that nasty word, judgment. And then the other one is like, well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. There's a lot of high strange going on here. And, you know, it's not really feeling very, very right. You know, it's not feeling analogous to our evolutionary path, how we've evolved up to this point, right? Doesn't feel right. Anyway, that's what's going on. You can see it here. You can see it here. Okay. The sun is moving closer into trine with Neptune. This is going to be a temporary transit, right, over the next few days, about 5 days, a degree per day with the sun. And that's a nice energy. It's a good energy. Sun, Neptune trines tend to be more kind. And I do think we need more kindness. I do. Now, that's different than allowing everything to just kind of be, right? Oh, yeah, let it all happen. Do as thou will. That was the whole law, right? Everything is permitted. But being kind and being compassionate and having some empathy is different than that, right? It's just different than that, because there are theoretical choices to be made. Like, you can choose to be kind. And I think it's a choice that is important, and one that we probably should do our best to integrate into our lives. And I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to be in service to kindness. Isn't that right, Jasper? Isn't that right? Jasper, the former street cat. You see, Jasper is the American story. He's the American story. He is the American cattail, because Jasper was a street cat. You guys know that story. He was living on the streets of San Francisco with all the fecal matter, right? And he wound up having to be transported to the animal shelter in San Francisco because the guy who was taking care of Jasper couldn't take care of him anymore. So Jasper is a refugee of the streets of San Francisco. And look at him now. He's living in Texas, living the high life in Texas. He's an internet star, although most of the time you just see the back of his head. He's an internet TV star, right? From the streets of San Francisco to YouTube. See, if Jasper can do it, anybody can do it, right? Right, Jasper? Okay. He's a good cat. So we've got this trine going on, the Neptune. Oh, now I get the whispers. I get the whispers. We get the Neptune Sun trine. That's great. The moon is in Virgo. Tomorrow it'll be in Libra. It's a nice moon to start the week with moon in Libra. Talk about being kind. It's a moon in Libra is like, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? It's balancing. It's emotionally balancing. So it's actually pretty good. It's a pretty good energy to start the week. Although we will have a Moon Venus square. Venus is in Cancer, which I like. I like Venus in Cancer. But tomorrow we're gonna have a Moon Venus square. It's temporary. It's not a long-term transit. And Venus in Cancer tends to be very, very personal. Moon in Libra tends to be a bit less personal. So it's just, it's trying to figure out how you can relate on a more intimate or more kind of emotional level with Venus in Cancer, caring, whereas the moon in Libra tends to be a bit more objective, right? So there could be some kind of energy that's connected to people wanting more attention or time. Like, can you please listen to me? I'm really trying to share something with you, and you're just trying to be fair, right? I need you to be on my side. I need you to agree with me that these people that I'm telling you about are complete assholes. Don't you just love that one? It's like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, sure. No, I don't agree with you. People don't like that stuff. They don't like it because they're looking to just have their point of view validated. But that's kind of what is happening tomorrow. And we're getting ready. Look at that. There she is. Dun, 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 dun. Mercury retrograde. We have Mercury retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde, and Jasper's retrograde. He just jumped off the set. So a lot of retrograde action. This Mercury retrograde with Jeffrey Epstein is going to be really interesting. Really, 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 really interesting. Why don't I jump to Jeffrey Epstein's chart? Let's get out of the chart of the moment. Let's see. So I don't have his ascendant. It's funny, I got this chart from this woman's website, Twilight Star Song. And when I first started to do astrology, we were kind of like internet astrological pals. She's English and she lives in the Midwest, and I really like her. She's got a pretty good astrology side too. Twilight Star Song, I think is her name. She's English and married an American guy. And I think I got a little too radical for her. She's an Aquarian. And she was very disappointed to find out that Jeffrey Epstein was an Aquarian. If I was an Aquarian, I'd probably be disappointed too. But that's the nature of Aquarianism. Aquarians, just like other signs, tend to run the gamut of being like really cool, interesting, chill people to people that have some very unusual ideas. Remember, Aquarius is a fixed sign and it tends to be rather eccentric. We know this, right? It tends to be a rather eccentric sign. And it's also group oriented. So here's Epstein's son at 0 Aquarius. So he's born right in the first day of Aquarius. And of course he's group oriented. But the guy was orchestrating and directing and managing underage orgies and probably more at Pedo Island, which apparently has burned down now. They burned the whole thing down. But he's an Aquarian with the true node in Aquarius as well. He was born just after an eclipse, by the way. The eclipse would have been about 2 days. The moon would have been right there, but it passed through not just Aquarius, Pisces, but in Aries, hot Aries. So he's got an Aries moon. And it's Aries moons tend to be kind of aggressive and desirous. It is a hot moon. That's how I describe the Aries moon, hot moon. And when we look at his moon, well, what's it doing? Well, he's got Uranus in Cancer squaring that Aries moon, which means unusual emotional situations. Yeah, unusual emotional situations. Now, if his true node is in Aquarius, where's his south node? It's in Leo. And what is Leo? Leo is children. And that is Mr. Oh, where is it? Right here. You can't see it because that's where Pluto is. Oh, check that out. So his south node is at 13 Leo. It's in kind of a wide conjunction with Pluto. Pluto and Leo. So his south node, that's his vulnerability, children. And he's got the Pluto conjunction, wide conjunction with the south node. There you go. Kids, sex, eroticism, dungeons, Pluto and Leo, south node and Leo. And what's he doing? He's organizing group activity. That's right. Now, I think that Epstein Island was a honey trap and that they were using it for political purposes, meaning not only were they, paying, people were paying to sit down and have sex with a 13 or 14-year-old girl or boy. Not only were they doing that, but they were videotaping everything. And then, and anybody that's in the know about this stuff knows that Alan Dershowitz has a file called insurance. He's got all of it. Alan Dershowitz has all of it. He's got everybody. That's why Alan Dershowitz is untouchable. He's got insurance. But that's what they were doing with people. They were videotaping them and they were using all that stuff against the people ultimately later on down the line, whether it was money extortion or a vote or some kind of connection that needed to be made between two people that one person may be able to pull off and maybe didn't want to do it because perhaps they didn't like the other person. Let's say, for instance, somebody could make a connection with somebody in Saudi Arabia. They didn't like the Saudi Arabians, but they had some kind of business link or some kind of contract that they would force them to do that. So this was used as leverage. So this is like whether it's Nexium or whether it's Necker Island or whether it's Pedo Island, it's about leverage and using that information so that they can extort people. It's been going on for a very long time, super, super long time. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's partner, is the daughter of Robert Maxwell. And Robert Maxwell was a spy. He was a big-time spy, and he was employed by the Mossad, but apparently the Mossad actually wound up killing Robert Maxwell. So she comes from a family of spycraft. So the whole spy thing and the extortion racket that's associated with was sort of baked into the Ghislaine Maxwell family line, okay? So a lot of that was happening in Pedo Island. He's got a Venus-Mars conjunction in Pisces, and that's exact, right? That's a really unusual aspect, is that exact Venus-Mars conjunction. Well, so he's probably bisexual. That's what I think. He's probably bisexual with Venus and Mars together in Pisces, completely blended, no separation. It's a very unusual conjunction, by the way, Venus-Mars conjunctions. And people with Venus-Mars conjunctions can be very charismatic, super charismatic. And this guy was probably extremely popular, extremely popular. He would appeal to both men and women simultaneously. It's a chart that's marked by conjunctions. This one and also the Neptune-Saturn conjunction. That's an interesting conjunction as well. Neptune and Saturn, Libra, relationship, contracts, squaring off against Uranus, and even, what is that? It's squaring off against Mercury. Oh, that's interesting. Mercury Neptune square. Sign, fortunately, it's the same square that Trump has, only Trump's Mercury is in the sign of Cancer on the other side. So Trump's planets are kind of right around in here, third house. You know, he's got Venus in Cancer, Saturn in Cancer, and Mercury in Cancer, and they're all sort of clustered around Epstein's Uranus, right? Jupiter in Taurus, that's money. That's money, that's assets. And what's it doing? Sextile Uranus, looks like there. And also sextiling Mars. And then it's not really squaring the sun, squares a true node. Yeah, that's money though. People have Jupiter and Taurus generally tend to have money. If they don't, come get a reading with me and I'll help you work that out. Anyway, there's his chart. Now remember, this is not his rising sign. We don't have his birth time. This is a 12 noon chart. This is what Twilight, I think it was Twyla or Twilight. This is what she cast for Epstein. But I really think that the devil in the details is the Aquarian stuff, the group orientation, the detachment, the South Node in the sign of Leo, which is going to be right here, conjunct Pluto, wide conjunction, the strange Venus-Mars conjunction, which is the masculine and feminine, and very little separation between the two. And of course, the square with Uranus and the moon. It's kind of an unusual emotional configuration. Kinky. This is a kinky guy. Uranus moon square, kinky. And definitely has a moon that is intent on filling its desires, right? Emotional desires. So in terms of kind of what's going on transit-wise, the true node is right here, should be right there, right at 16 degrees. So exposing Uranus, or connected to Uranus in his chart right now. That south node is going to be right over here. Again, we don't know what house really it's in. This is kind of the planets are right, but it's a make-believe chart in terms of the houses. That south node's back over here. Okay. Saturn and Pluto, he's got Pluto on his Mercury. That's going to cook his goose right there. That's going to cook his goose. He's got to have it. The trial of Jeffrey Epstein is going to be really interesting. I wonder if he's going to live. I think there are people that want him dead right now, to be honest with you. Because he's going to have a Saturn square coming up, and he's got a Pluto square to Neptune in his chart, and Pluto square to Saturn. That'll be next year. Next few months for Jeffrey Epstein are going to be very interesting, to say the least, with some of these Pluto squares going on. And he's got a Pluto. Let's see what's happening here. No, not quite there. Saturn moon, no. Pluto moon, no. That's already happened. What is going on here? What do we have happening coming up? Oh, Mars. Oh, interesting. Transiting Mars is going to cross his Pluto. I mean, for a lot of baby boomers, it's going to happen. But in a time where he's in a precarious spot with Mars crossing his Pluto, I don't know. I wouldn't feel too. Remember what happened with Kenneth Lay, Mr. Enron? As soon as Enron started to go belly up, Ken Lay made a few cursory rounds. He was going to go up to go for trial, and then he theoretically died of a heart attack. I don't think he ever died. I think he was basically extracted. I wonder if that's going to happen with Mr. Epstein. But I think Mars crossing his Pluto is definitely a danger zone. All right, let me connect with you guys and see what's happening with you in your world. What do we got here? Judges found dead in the Epstein case today. Hello. There we go. Thank you, Anna. I don't think he's going to be the last person. This Epstein thing is big shit. I'm telling you, if they open these files and they really dig into these files, careers are going to be over. May even have an impact on the economy. I shit you not. Okay, that's how deep this thing goes. Let's see. What else? James Comey's daughter is the prosecutor in the case. Oh, really? Very interesting. Very interesting. James Comey's daughter. They're going after Trump. If that's the case, they're going to go after Trump. They're going to try to nail Trump with Epstein. I always thought that this was kind of behind what was going on, because when you look at it was like, I think it was wasn't it the Miami Herald Times that was really digging back into Epstein? And I think that there was a connection between the Miami Herald Times and the Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't think this is Trump trying to get at Epstein. I think this is the other side trying to get at Trump through Epstein. That's my sense. That's my sense. What do you guys think of that? Trump is protected. I don't doubt that. What do you think? Nancy Pelosi's daughter said the Epstein list contains popular public figures. Trump name was not on the court-released flight manifesto lists that were just released. Okay, good to know. Julie K. Brown, journalist from Miami Herald. That is all this is about. Epstein is going to be fine. They're after Trump, period. So we have some divided, it was the Miami Herald. We have some divided opinions about this. Look, it's clear that Trump knew Epstein. There are pictures of him with Epstein. There are pictures of Trump with young women, okay? Young women. Trump was sued before he was running for president. Now, again, I don't know the extent of this, right? I don't know the extent of this. You know, there are people that say, well, that suit came up, you know, at a specific point in time so that Trump would have to deal with it. It would derail his election. You know, why didn't it come up sooner? I mean, all that, I mean, that's legitimate, right? And then all of a sudden it went away. It's like, well, what happened? Was she silenced? You know, that could be legitimate too. Look, we don't really know. We don't really know. I'm telling you, we don't know. We don't know if Trump was involved with underage girls. He could have been. I mean, let's be clear about something. And I'm not, if that's the case, I'm not giving him a pass. But if you go back and look at, okay, so I'm pretty sure this is, I'm pretty sure Brian Ferry is on the Epstein, in the Epstein book. The reason I'm thinking about this is there's a song by Roxy Music called Trash. And it's about a girl who's like a Euro trash. She's a girl. She's a girl. And she's, Brian Ferry singing about her. And one of the lines is, only 17. Don't you know the trash I mean? And this permeates into sort of what was going on with rock and roll at that time in the 1970s and even up through the 80s to some degree. And in the 1970s, it was all about these really young gals hanging out in Los Angeles, you know, 14, 15 years old. And, you know, they're screwing Jimmy Page and you know, Bill Wyman and you know, all this British rock royalty and Americans as well. So and again, I'm not giving anybody a pass, but that was part of the culture, right? That's what was going on at that time. And I think in many cases, most people were too high to really notice, right? They were too high. They were too wasted. You know, that was part of the simulacra, or the part of the gestalt, you know, the social gestalt. Everybody was high. Everybody was looking for a good time. You know, the 60s had come to a crashing halt, and Quaaludes were very, very popular, Quaaludes and cocaine. And that was kind of what was happening during the 70s. And you know, having sex with underage girls was part of the culture. So I would say that that probably extended into this, you know, young girl for hire kind of world that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were involved in. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that it was probably an extension of the culture at that time. And it's like, oh, well, you know, Bill Wyman can go, you know, bang a 14-year-old. Well, why can't I? Oh, well, here's an opportunity for me to do that. Oh, well, yeah, the Rolling Stones are doing this. Led Zeppelin's doing this. Well, shit, they're getting away with it. Why can't I get away with it? I mean, I think that that's probably, and that's a mild version of it. You know, there's worse versions of it. There's way worse versions of it. Not that that one is great. So I think that was part of the kind of the cultural mindset during that time. So does that give Trump a pass? No, if indeed that is the case. And there are some people who believe that that is the case. And if that is the case, then there's a chance that through whatever's happening with Epstein, it, you know, whatever involvement is there, it could come up. It could, and what, you know, how would that all of a sudden impact what's going on? You know, these eclipses are playing into Donald Trump's fifth house, right? This last eclipse, well, this next eclipse, where we have the full moon in Capricorn, that's going to be in his fifth house, in the house of children, okay? House of children. And that moon, right, the moon is feminine. So, you know, this thing is just taken off, and it's going to bear some witnessing. It's going to bear witnessing. And of course, we know that once you start pulling those strings, right, once you start pulling those strings, the whole ball of yarn begins to come on, you know, undone. It's major. The Epstein thing it's really major. It's really significant. And it came on the throes of that earthquake, right? On the heels of that earthquake. That earthquake was, you know, shocking in a lot of ways. And the Epstein stuff was shocking as well. So we're going to follow it, you know, over the course of this week. I'll be covering it on 15 Minutes of Flame, you know, as events and more information begins to, you know, come out around this. It's going to be the big event. This is huge. And, you know, not really sure where this thing is going to spin. Somebody in the chat room said Trump is protected. I think Trump is fairly protected. I think that there's a weird, and I've said this before, people have laughed, but there's a weird kind of supernatural kind of energy around Trump at times. And I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you what. Most people who have crossed swords with him have had something go wrong. They call it the Trump curse. Megan Rapinoe's hockey team, who was a Cancer, by the way, it was her birthday, July 5th. Nothing's happened to Megan Rapinoe yet. Right? Oh, these are all people that have come out against Trump and been pretty vocal and pretty nasty a lot of the time. And I think you could probably put Megan Rapinoe in there. I've talked about her before. You know, if you don't want to, you know, stand for the anthem or, you know, anything like that, I mean, that's fine. It's your right. As an American, guess what? It's your right. Because in another country, it wouldn't be your right. You wouldn't be on the team. But I just, you know, have said that it would be important for her to realize and remember that, yeah, our tax dollars sent that team over there. And it was this country that gave her the opportunity to become an international women's soccer star. This country which promoted Title IX in women's sports. This country gave her that. Not Ecuador, not Egypt, none of them. I was trying to think of another E country. England? No, not even England. It was this country. And she can't even like put her hand over her heart. I mean, that's the problem I have. If you've got issues with the country, I get it. That's fine. That's fine. But in that situation, where you've gotten a ton, and I mean a ton, of good stuff, healthcare, growing up healthy, right? Growing up healthy. I mean, for all the bitching and griping and moaning, and it's not perfect. There's a lot that needs to be dealt with here. Still, pretty amazing freaking place. And that place has enabled her to be on the world stage and then be kind of a total asshole towards the country. Just a notice. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Megan Rapinoe. All right, let me see what's going on in the chat room. Trump has angels watching out for him. Right on, Robert. There are several Christian groups who say Trump is under divine protection. They say it on the 4th after Trump and Melania left, the storm hit. Did the team stomp on the American flag after their win? No, they haven't. They didn't do that. I think they comported themselves reasonably well. Reasonably well. I just, look, I have issues with the country at times as well. You know, I have issues with some of the alliances of the country. And I have issues with our alliance with Saudi Arabia. I have issues with our alliance with Saudi Arabia's neighbor who treats, you know, the people inside of their country like an apartheid state. I have issues with that, okay? I do. I have issues with this country and its relationship with big pharma and big data and all the big bigs. I have issues with that stuff. At the end of the day, though, right, I'm here. Wasn't born here. I was actually born in Europe. Came here when I was about 6 months old. But I'm here, and you're here, and we're here for the most part. You may as well throw down. That's, you know, no place is perfect. No place is perfect. And this is probably the most perfect and perfect place there is, if you think about it. And I think we're leaking. I think we're leaking oil, to be honest with you. I think we're leaking oil, and I feel like it's going to get worse. But all right, there's my 2 cents on the deal. My 2 cents on the dollar. Hey, let's look at the earthquake chart because I think that's worth looking at. There's some interesting stuff, and the people that were over on Facebook last night, you guys got to see some of that action when I posted it. So let's see if I can find it over here in the midst of all these other charts that I have. Where are we? Here it is. Okay. So this is really interesting. This is an interesting chart. So this is, again, from the 5th, which is Friday night. Okay, so you see right here, this is at 8:19 p.m., Ridgecrest, where that China Lake Naval Facility is. You're right here at the bottom, at the IC, the home, right? This is the home of this chart. There is Uranus in Taurus. Kaboom. Kaboom. Right there at the base and the foundation of this chart, Uranus is rocking that chart. Well, what else is going on? We've got a Mercury and Mars square. Mars in Leo, Mercury in Leo. All right, that is rumbling intensity, and it is force and even potentially violence, right? That's the nature of Mars. I think something's going on there. I think that there is a subterranean conflict taking place. And you can see it right here with the opposition, with the true node and the sun in Cancer and opposing the south node and Saturn over here in Capricorn. I think we're witnessing or we're watching something go down between these two countervailing forces. I think it's happening, and it manifested in Ridgecrest on 2 nights. And I don't think the earthquakes are done, by the way. I think we got one more coming. But this is a very interesting chart, and I think they dodged a bullet. I think they dodged a bullet. I think this could have been worse. By degree, if Mars was closer to Mercury, and we're going to get Mars coming up here in the next day or two in an exact square with Uranus, that is, I think, a hot spot. So what are we talking, Tuesday, Wednesday? That's a hot spot. But I think they dodged a bit of a bullet. I think it could have been worse. That's my sense. Now, were there divine forces in action protecting people? I think so. I think so. I think that there were energies that were probably containing what happened a lot more than actually was allowed to take place. I think that could have been a really devastating and nasty earthquake. So I think they dodged a bullet. That's my sense with this. But I don't think they're out of the woods because that Mars square to Uranus is coming up in 2 days. Now, remember, we talked about this last week. We talked about it last week right here in this show, and I've been talking about it prior to last week. I've been talking about it in the prior week as well. And we were talking about Earth activity, intensified Earth activity in, around, and after the eclipse. And there it is, right? That was part of our dialogue. This just blows me away, though. Check that out. Look at where Uranus is. Right there. Ridgecrest, California. Boom. Uranus and Taurus. Right on the IC. Right on the IC. Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. Let's see what you guys have to say about that. See what you think about that chart in the earthquake. Volcanoes have, that's right. Volcanoes have been going off. The Ring of Fire is always, something's always happening. Mr. Cruz says the earthquake shook me good in Glendale. I just sat and rode the wave. It wasn't scary, but I'm from San Francisco and I only remember the big 89 quake. I haven't felt one in years. I agree with the tunnel destruct idea. It felt like it was a small wave under my feet. It felt very smooth and easy. It wasn't violent. My birthday was on the eclipse. Well, happy birthday, JW. Happy birthday to you. Moon 8th, Astro fly in Dubai. Okay. Kaboom. Does this mean Eric Casey's dream map will become reality? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys something. It's what I talked about today over on Jay's show. I'm going to show you this map. Check this out. This is wild. So this is still on the topic of eclipses. So this is the eclipse path from the great eclipse of August 21st, 2017. Starts here, goes all the way down here, ends at the 33rd degree parallel. This is the next great American eclipse in 2024, April 8th, coming up from Mexico right here, and it splits the country literally in two, right? It bisects the country. What do we have here? What is this? This is the New Madrid fault line, right there, right there. And I think if there's a potential for a massive natural disaster, it would be right around here, right around this time with this eclipse, the April 8th eclipse. By the way, Pluto will be in Aquarius at that. It's a very unusual chart, super, super unusual chart. And it really marks kind of this America at a crossroads, really. America / North America at a crossroads. And look at how it comes up from Mexico. Mexico plays a role in that eclipse, April 8th. That's the big Aries eclipse, right? Really interesting. I'll show you the map for that. I'll show you, not the map, I'll show you the chart for that. It's really a trippy chart. This is what I was working on and bringing to the table with Jay and his crew. Give me 1 second here, I gotta find it. Yeah, all right, check this out. So this is the eclipse for April 8th, 2024. And it's at 2:17 p.m. That's when the eclipse happens. I put Washington, D.C. Check this out. Look at this. You've got all these planets in Pisces, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and then you have this super stellium in Aries, Venus, true node, Moon, Sun, Chiron, Mercury, massive stellium in Aries. And that's intense, it's martial. Aries is individual. It is individual. And then we have Pisces, which is involved in some form of collectivity with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, right? And this is water and this is fire. It's a very, very interesting chart and time. Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, to me, this is the new economy, right? This is the new economy. This is where things, I think, go digital. Now, I think they'll be going digital before this eclipse. That's my take. But it's a fascinating and kind of mind-blowing alignment of planets. Fire and water and some land. There's no air here. Well, Pluto, I guess, in Aquarius. That's it. And that South Node in Libra. Holy smokes. Yeah, holy smokes. So that's the energy that we're dealing with that 2024 eclipse. And again, theoretically, that would be an election year. That would be, but we have other eclipses. We have Saturn and Pluto conjunctions to get to before that eclipse. Okay. So there you go. See what you guys are talking about in there. I'm so glad I found out about it. Okay, not woo-woo. All right. Let's see, Mr. Cruz, the earthquake shook me good in Glendale. Okay, you rode that wave. What else is going on? Let's see. Unbelievable. Wow. Cryptocurrency is on the horizon. Blockchain needed to make more predictable. Let's see, in what form do you plan to be on? Venus at Chris and Steve Crimmy. Hopefully we can be on Venus for the 2024 eclipse. Right, this is after the U.S. Pluto-Saturn return. U.S. Pluto return, that's correct. That is correct. And I actually have that. I have the Pluto return chart. I pulled that up today. We didn't get to talk about it with Jay. Let me bring it up here. Let me find that. Give me 1 sec. I got charts all over my computer. No, that's not it. Hold on. No, that's not it. Let me see. I got so many charts. Oh, here it is. Oh, this is the Saturn Pluto. Oh, this is the Pluto return. I found it. Here we go. Bada bing. Okay, there it is. Pluto at 27. That is the degree of Pluto that is in the U.S. chart, 27 Pluto in Capricorn. That is the Pluto return. And of course, there's a lot happening. Venus-Pluto conjunction. What's really interesting about this chart is that Pluto at that time isn't really, now Pluto will be at 27 degrees, and I'm thinking probably somewhere in April, March, April, when we get into the Aries planets and the squares of the Aries planets to Pluto, that could be kind of intense. I don't necessarily see this as being entirely catastrophic, to be honest with you, because Pluto more or less has a sympathetic relationship with the outer planets. We've got kind of a wide sextile to Neptune, and then it's not quite a trine to Uranus. But I think Jupiter, which is fast moving, later in the year, will wind up squaring off against Pluto. Now, it won't be at the Pluto return degree likely. It'll probably be around 28, 29, with Jupiter coming in squaring. That could be critical. That could be a critical square with Jupiter and Aries, and mounting kind of martial energy expanding and mounting martial energy against this. You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. You know, where we are as a state, as a nation at that time. Like I said, I think we're leaking oil, and I think we're kind of vulnerable on some level. On another level, I think we're actually kind of doing okay as we awaken from our slumber, our long-term slumber. You know, it's kind of funny. It's like we're waking up from our slumber, and we have, you know, the PC police, you know, the purple clad Bolsheviks running around, you know, trying to billy club us and put us back to sleep, you know, as we awaken from our slumber. Get back to sleep. You know, we're not supposed to wake up. I actually think it's not too bad. I think it's not too bad. I think the energies are okay during this time. And again, it's all based on outer planet stuff, right? All based on outer planet. But we will have some transformation. It's just the way it is. There will be some transformation. We talked about this today over with Jay and his crew, and the only way I think this country can come back together, and maybe even the world, but I can't speak for the world because there are other countries in the world that are fine, like China. Even though they're kind of hemorrhaging money, like their economy is not doing so great. China has some mostly cohesion and unity, even if it is basically being enforced by a police state. Japan has their own homogeneous kind of, you know, Japan has its own issues, right? Like the birth rate in Japan is plummeting. You know, they're not having as many people in Japan, many kids. Maybe that's not a bad thing given that it's such a small landmass. But the reasons for it are a bit troubling. In that the youth are not bonding and connecting and creating families the way that they have in the past. They're in a very different kind of relationship with one another. So every country in the world has its issues. But this country has been so fragmented and really pulled apart. And that's what I was talking about last night over on Facebook with this lunar eclipse coming up. And to me, the lunar eclipse is really going to, you know, put into motion and really objectify in a lot of ways this massive split that's taken place over the course of the last couple of years. I mean, it really started to take place. Like you go back and you look at the Bush administration in 9/11, and 9/11 was weird. Like 9/11, like strangely brought the country together, you know, but it was like, it was so wrong. And then just as soon as, you know, the country was brought together and the world was feeling sorry for the United States, you know, the neocons who had infiltrated the Bush White House just said, ha ha, fuck you, let's go start some wars. And created just a terrible, terrible feeling of animosity towards the United States again. It was like we had this, you know, really brief little reprieve that, you know, oh, look what happened in the United States. They got screwed over. Now, if that happened, how do you think people would feel? People would be happy. People around the world would be thrilled that the United States would have had some kind of a terrorist event or some kind of a disaster. There wouldn't be a lot. There wouldn't be the same kind of outpouring and goodwill, because that's all been, number one, it's been squandered. And number two, there's been a false narrative that's been put forth about, you know, how this country has evolved, and that for all intents and purposes, we're a fascist state. No, we're not a fascist state. We're letting people fly into this country from the southern border willy-nilly. It's like, you know, Cory Booker is doing Hava Nagila coming across the border, you know, with those immigrants who are supposedly LGBTQ, you know, 40 other variations. You know, they're doing the Hava Nagila coming across the border. It's like, you know, hey, look at us. Woohoo, right? You know, and if you're somebody who's on the left, how could you not see that and say, hey, you know, this is a great country. Isn't this great? Look at what Cory Booker's doing. Ha ha ha! Isn't this great? You know, so much for, you know, Mr. Fascist, Mr. Racist, Mr. Misogynist, Sexist president. You know, if you're involved in if you're pro-immigration, Trump is your guy. I'm sorry, he's your guy, and he's your guy because Jared Kushner and Ivanka, I think, are really pro-immigration. They're pro-immigration. They're open borders people. You know, Trump says, "Oh, I'm a globalist and I'm a nationalist," and he does this. He does this, and he believes it. He is a globalist and he said that. And that's that Sun Uranus conjunction in Gemini. I've thought about it. He does stuff that is like really kind of nationalistic, and he does stuff that's really globalistic. He does them both. It's kind of fascinating to watch. So, you know, what else has Trump done that has really made life terrible for all these people who said they were going to leave the country? You know, you can go back to Charlottesville. Oh, Charlottesville. Well, if you know anything about Charlottesville, it was a shit show. It was a total shit show. And the guys that put that Charlottesville event together, well, where are they now? You know, where are they now? They're nowhere. And those guys were Obama supporters. They were Obama's. The one guy who basically organized the Charlottesville event, was an Obama supporter. I think he's an agent provocateur. I think they rigged Charlottesville, right? Because now that's all we talk about now. Oh, Charlottesville. And that's supposed to be some kind of apotheosis of fascism. I don't necessarily think it is or was. Because guess what? Have we had another Charlottesville since then? Right? Did Trump dial that up and say, hey, go do Charlottesville? Were people somehow empowered by Trump to go do that? No, I don't think so. I don't think that was the case. In fact, if anything, I think that was a covert op. That's what, you know, I've looked into it. That's my gut feeling. Okay. So Trump has actually been, if you're really, really dispassionate lefty, like really, he's kind of like been there for you, especially on the border side. Now there's some things that he hasn't been there for. I get it. But I don't think you can use that broad stroke brush, which they've been doing since day one, and tarring him and his administration. It's no better or no worse than any other administration that's been in Washington, D.C. And I could probably make a case that Obama was worse. He was worse. And the worst part about Obama was race relations. He set race relations back 100 years or 50 years. And then that was kind of the burning embers of that, right? That's what Trump inherited. And they've been on him from day one, okay? And it's part of a larger plan, and the larger plan is to flip the world either into a Bolshevik top-down socialist communist version of command control, or a nationalist version of it, which would be kind of equally as regressive in some ways, right? These are the models that we're getting. Now, I've got no problem with nationalism. I just don't want my nationalism tainted and mixed up with other countries. I'm very protective of my nationalism, let's put it that way. Okay. Protective of my nationalism. Anyway, let's see where you guys are. What time is it? 9 o'clock. Where are we in the chat? Portland's Antifa should be busted. I agree with that. Obama was much worse. Obama's American. Obama's a CIA baby. Obama Nixon get 1984. Yep. Obama's a CIA baby all the way. 100%. CIA baby. 100%. Okay, so I wanted to bring up a few charts tonight that are presidential charts. So, okay, I was looking at Marianne Williamson. By the way, today is Marianne Williamson's birthday. I was looking at Marianne Williamson, and I always remember Marianne Williamson being kind of attractive. And I found this picture of her without makeup. You know, she's 67 years old, which is, she's much older than I thought she was. I thought Marianne Williamson was probably in her early 60s. I really feel like she should go without makeup. This is Marianne Williamson without makeup. In fact, I think her makeup is too thick. Why not? Just, you know, let it rip, Marianne. Be real. Be real. Today's her birthday, so I decided to look at her chart. Now, I have issues with her, and I'll get into them. But let's just look at her chart. So she's a Gemini rising, like Kamala Harris. Gemini rising. Sun Uranus conjunction, like Elizabeth Warren. So she's like a version. She's like a combination of Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. It's kind of interesting in some ways. And she's got a Venus Uranus conjunction. Does she have any kids, by the way? Oh, tomorrow's her birthday, not today. Does she have any kids? I don't know if she has any children. Let me see this for a second. I know somebody that grew up with her, by the way. Good friend of mine. Let's see. This was something I didn't think about. Let's see what we got. Marianne Deborah Williamson from Houston. Let's see what we got. She has one child. I've never seen this woman in a relationship. Let's see, what do we have? Activism, Love America tour, presidential campaign, political views. She was briefly married, and in 1990, she gave birth to a daughter, India Emma. Briefly married. That's a very, yeah, she's got some, let's hear, these are her political views. Some of her political views I kind of vibe with, and some I don't. So here are her views. Pretty straight line progressive Democrat, wants to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. I'm telling you, that $15 per hour minimum wage is like pissing in the ocean. We got automation on the way. $15 an hour is nothing. Of course, she's going to try to reduce income inequality. You reduce income inequality by creating jobs and vocations. It's still not too late for that, by the way. Addressing climate change. They're all addressing climate change. Tackling student loan debts. She backs a Medicare for All model. Where are you going to get the money for it? She's into DACA and a pathway to, so these are all straight line Democratic issues. She backs the new Green Deal. She wants to establish the Department of Peace and expand global diplomacy, mediation, educational and economic development. She also voices support for stricter gun control, criminal justice reform, free college tuition. Okay. The only thing that I really support her on are vaccines. It's the one thing she gets. She's described mandatory vaccinations as Orwellian, stating to me that it's no different than the abortion debate. She gets that right, in my opinion. She later stated that she misspoke, and I support vaccines. You know, why can't somebody just take a fucking stand, right? Just take a fucking stand and say, I don't support vaccines. Now she's got to, do you trust somebody like this? She calls him Orwellian. Orwellian. That's a really strong term. And then she says, I support vaccines. Public safety must be carefully balanced with the right of individuals to make their own decisions. Come on. Stand up for something. According to the Los Angeles Times, she has a history of skeptical comments about vaccinations. So she has one kid, no husband. I don't see her being involved in any long-term relationship. You know, even Oprah's been involved with Gail. You don't see anybody with Marianne Williamson. Not that you have to, but I mean, come on, you're going to be president of the United States. Could you at least fake it? Get a beard? You know, at least fake it. No. She's going to, I mean, why not? She's not going to be president. She's not, but I want to look at her chart anyway. Okay, she's unusual. Sun-Uranus conjunction, very new age. Venus-Uranus conjunction, that's very unusual relationships. And that's a tight conjunction. 19 degrees, Uranus 14, 5 degrees. So her relationships are different. Venus squaring Neptune. That's really weird, okay? So could Marianne Williamson have a relationship with God versus a man or a woman, let's say? Could that happen? Is God her life partner? Maybe that's what she would say. Maybe she would call it the divine, or maybe that's, you know, bride of Christ or something. I don't, you know. But the Venus-Neptune square does not bode well for relationships. It's kind of shaky ground. This woman's not built for relationships. Venus-Uranus conjunction, Venus-Neptune square. I don't know. I mean, I feel like somebody who is going to theoretically, you know, in this stage of the political game, which again, I think is winding down, but if they're going to do it, they should know how to be in a relationship, know how to run a family. These are my thoughts and my feelings. They should have kids, their own kids too, by the way, not somebody else's kids, not fake kids, their own kids. They should have them. I know what it's like to raise them, because you got skin in the game, right? You got skin in the game. When you have a marriage, you have a partnership, you have a relationship, you've got skin in the game. You're invested. There's no investment. There's no investment in this chart. None. No investment. And if you want somebody who's going to be responsible for a country, you want investment. Mercury-Pluto conjunction in Leo, interesting third house. Sometimes Pluto in the third house can be a profound thinker. Sometimes it can happen. Mercury sextile to Neptune. So she gets her information in a non-linear fashion with a Mercury-Neptune sextile. Good for meditation, Mercury-Neptune sextile. It's kind of a mystical avenue with Mercury-Neptune, but Mercury is in its detriment in Leo. Not the best place for Mercury. Third house, good place for Mercury, third house. And then, you know, putting forth ideas dramatically, not bad. Mercury-Pluto conjunction, Mercury at 11, Pluto at 29 degrees. But then we got the square to Jupiter, right? And that's like big ideas, big vision. You know, can you pull it off? She's done probably pretty well in her personal life, or in her not her personal life, in her professional spiritualist life. You know, she's guided by that true node in Aquarius in the 9th house, higher ideals. I don't think she's, here's what I think. I don't think she's being disingenuous with her idealism. I don't. I think you can see that here with that true node in Aquarius in the 9th house. The big idea, the new world or the new age. And with a Pisces midheaven, you're being drawn towards kind of humanitarian things. But this is not a chart I would trust. She's got a moon square to Neptune. That's terrible. I mean, it's a rough square. It's a rough square. She's got a moon square to Neptune. She's got a sun and a Venus square to Neptune. This is not somebody who is standing on solid ground. And even though she's got Moon in Capricorn and Jupiter in Taurus, they're not even linked up. She's not standing on solid ground, not with these squares. She's got Mars in Scorpio, that's intense. And she's got a Mars Sun trine, a Mars Venus trine, a Mars Uranus trine. So she has some magnetism that with that. I'm just looking at her chart. There's magnetism there. But this, I don't think this is a presidential chart. I personally, and I have issues with her, to be honest with you. I have issues with her. I have issues with Oprah. I have issues with Deepak Chopra. I have issues with Barbara Marx Hubbard and all these new age people that at one point in time called themselves our spiritual evolutionary leaders. And I have a post that I wrote about them. I went back and I found this post. Let me see if I can find it. I was cruising on the internets about some of the stuff that I've done. Let me see if I can find it. It's right here. This is evolutionary leadership, the New World Order, and the pseudo Aquarian age. And I wrote this 10 years ago. Can't believe that. I wrote it 10 freaking years ago. Where does the time go, man? It's crazy, huh? Crazy. Here, I'll throw this in the chat room if you guys are into it. And I get into these people who at that time were stepping forward and they were trying to do this like, you know, spiritual sort of commission thing with Obama. You know, that's what they were doing. Barack Obama, marketing the New World Order, all that stuff. Anyway, it's in there. And I had issues with these people because they were never there. You know, they never wanted to sacrifice their spot on Oprah's couch, whether it was 9/11, geoengineering, what, you know, also known as chemtrails, some of the weird, you know, Morgellon-y kind of stuff, genetically modified organisms. None of these people ever came forward and said that these are the programs that are creating the matrix of somnambulism, sleepwalking, the matrix of sleepwalking that you're participating in, that you're in. These are the things that have helped create that. They didn't do any of that. And people were very open to exploring their human potential, especially if it felt good. Now, they may at some point say, well, I've got to look at my shadow, because shadow work became kind of all the rage there for a while. But we never really looked at things like the shadow government. That was never a part of it. We never looked at what happened in places like Waco or places like Oklahoma City or places like Mena, Arkansas. None of that was ever looked at or disassembled because it was dark and it wasn't going to put money in their pocketbooks. You know, so I had an issue with those people, and I still do. And you know, there's a lot of angst that is being generated towards the boomers, kind of around these things. And I get it. I totally get it. And Deepak Chopra and Barbara Marx Hubbard and Joan Borisenko and all these other people, Marianne Williamson, they're boomers. That's who they are. And in a time when we needed that generation to step up, they didn't step up. They just, and I'm not saying that there weren't people inside that generation that didn't try or work. Clearly there were. And I don't want to say every boomer is bad. I don't believe that. You know, but we get the presidents we deserve. And Bill Clinton was the first boomer president. And think about Bill Clinton. I mean, he really is sort of the poster child for everything that kind of went wrong during that generation. Barack Obama is our president. Barack Obama is not a boomer, by the way. You know, he's not. I wouldn't consider him a boomer. He's, you know, that weird in between generation between boomers and Gen X. There's actually a name for them / it's called Generation Jones. You can look that up. But that was, you know, it's like, man, it's like, this is the guy who's going to be the president that represents, you know, me and my generation. It's him. That's what we get. It's like, it was really disappointing, to be honest with you. You know, when I first heard about Barack Obama, I'm thinking, oh, constitutional lawyer, blah, 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 he could be. When I started to really look at him, man, this guy's bad news. He's bad news. It took me probably about a week to jump down the Barack Obama rabbit hole when I first figured out who he was. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's bad news. This is not somebody we want to be president. And I knew it was going to happen. It's like fait accompli time. It's on, right? Then we get Trump, who goes back to kind of a boomer. Trump's a boomer. He's a little bit older than Bill Clinton, but he's a boomer nonetheless. And where do we go from here? You know, we're going to get into a Gen X president. I don't know if we're going to have a Gen X president. We're going to get into a millennial president. Pete Buttigieg going to be our next president and the first millennial. I don't know. We'll find out. I think Kirsten Gillibrand I think she's a Gen Xer. Anyway, that's Marianne Williamson's chart. Somebody wanted me to do, what's his name's chart? Yang. Not Jerry Yang, what's his name? Andrew Yang. So I did Andrew Yang's chart. It's a very interesting chart in a lot of ways. Here we go. So again, I don't know his birth time, but I tried to play around with this a little bit, and based on his $1,000 a month plan for it. The one thing that Andrew Yang gets is he gets automation. He knows it's coming. He's the one person that talks about automation, which is going to snatch hundreds and thousands of more jobs than it's already snatched. He actually talks about automation. So Andrew Yang is very, very interesting. This is not his risings. I don't know what his time, you know, I decided that I wanted to put Uranus on the midheaven because he's introducing radical ideas. And then the universal income, I put Jupiter in the second house in Pisces. It's like, whew, right? Money for everybody, second house. What's interesting about Yang are all of his Aquarian planets. He's a Capricorn with the sun at 22 degrees Capricorn, but he's got all these Aquarian planets. He's born on a new moon. He's got all these Aquarian planets. So what he was really bringing forth is kind of an Aquarian ideal. And I'm not opposed to hearing more about his ideas. I'm not. But I'm also not really, you know, going to rubber stamp somebody who raises their hand and says, I'm going to give everybody on that podium, raise their hands. Oh yeah, free medical care to immigrants, illegals. Oh yeah. And he was not very impressive during the debate. I don't think he's a debater, but he's got an interesting chart. And it's the trines with these Aquarian planets, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, trining Pluto, which is resources, right? That's his model. You can see it in his chart. He's going to be up against some resistance because he's got also his Aquarian planets squaring Uranus. I think he's ahead of his time. I think he's ahead of his time. I really do. I don't necessarily oppose his ideas per se, right? I don't really necessarily. At some point, we're gonna have to reconfigure what we're doing here. I mean, we cannot embrace automation or have automation thrust upon us, and it is coming, and expect to roll out, you know, the United States of America circa 1950. It's just not going to happen. So we're going to have to, you know, again, on a collective level, if this is on a collective level, not a local level, that's a different story. But on a collective level, if we're going to still play in this game, we're all going to be in this sandbox. Some of the things that are coming down the pipeline, which I think are inevitable, we're going to have to wrap our heads around. Americans, by and large, I think, are terrific innovators. The problem with American innovation is, in many cases, it's handcuffed, and it is not allowed to truly innovate because of either some kind of regulation that is coming down through the states, or there's a corporate regulation that might get in the way of somebody, say, having a fantastic patent on a new technology, right? I think by and large, we're an innovative group of people. And I feel like innovation is going to be really important for us over the next, 10 to 15 years. And I think he's got innovative ideas. I think he's ahead of his time. I don't think it's an easy sell, not with these squares, but I don't think he's going to give up either. These are fixed signs. This guy's not going to go away. And if he's not on the map this time, and if there is a next time, he might even be on the map the next time. I think Andrew Yang has a fairly interesting chart. Does not have a lot of earth. Let's say he's got a different rising sign and it's not an earth sign. The only planet he has an earth is the sun in Capricorn. Everything else tends to be fire, air, and water, but not a lot of earth. Not a lot. So he could be responsible with the sun in Capricorn, but I don't necessarily think that that's his strong suit. I think ultimately with all this Aquarius, and even the squares to Uranus, which means ahead of his time, I think the guy's an innovator. I think he will find some resistance with Saturn opposing his sun. But if he could get Saturn or the Saturnian or the group or the masses on his side, he might have a kind of an interesting run here. Will he be present? I don't think so. But the transiting true node is getting ready to conjunct his Saturn. And that's actually a really, really good conjunction for him. Super good conjunction. And again, I don't know where it's going to line up in his chart. But Jupiter, this true node is going to go into Gemini, and it will wind up having a trine with his moon, Mercury, and Venus. And his ideas will be disseminated a lot more clearly during that time. I'm not stumping for the guy. I'm just trying to look at his chart and try to really read him from a chart level. What's interesting is that the only square to Neptune he has is a Jupiter square to Neptune. So he can be a dreamer. Jupiter-Neptune squares can be, they're dream oriented. That's the nature of a Jupiter-Neptune square. Are they realistic? Can they have, some kind of traction with a big idea? But I'd rather trust this square than all those squares to Neptune that Marianne Williamson has in her chart. Those are terrible. I wouldn't trust Marianne Williamson on a global stage or with policy at all. Not with those squares on her chart. Sorry. End of story. But Andrew Yang is interesting. And again, I think the most interesting part is right here, the trines to Pluto. And that he's actually really trying to do something. I think he believes in what he's doing. So there we go. Would I vote for him? Probably not. But I think these are some of the ideas at a collective level that we're going to have to stare down at some point. Does that mean we have to, shit can the Constitution? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But we're going to have, I think we'll really have to kind of reimagine. And new technology is going to have to come in. And, I really feel like that we could have a very interesting time in terms of technological development if we can tailor it so it's really empowering. It empowers communities and it empowers, new groups of people that are getting turned on to technology, using technology in a way that we haven't done before. Like I've always been turned on by the maker community where they combine, textiles and natural kind of elements with technology. If we can blend that together, I think that's a winning product. It's a winning combination. And I think hemp is the way to get there. That's a whole other discussion. All right, let me do one more check-in with you guys, and I'll start to wrap things up tonight. I was going to do Jaden Smith's chart, but I'm gonna back off of that for now, just for tonight. All right, let's see where you guys are at. Kamala Harris is a fake. Is Kamala Harris even a woman? Question mark. I'm just throwing that out there. Question mark. What else do we have? Oh yeah, Andrew Yang is having that Saturn opposition. Good catch. He is. That's a major opposition. That is a major opposition. Saturn opposition is life-changing. It's absolutely life changing. He's got to make a pivot. It's the pivot time for Andrew Yang. Good catch on the Saturn opposition. Hello, Rachel. How's it going? All right, what else? Kamala Harris might get taken down by Smollett connection. She was part of it. She was part of it. We talked about that, right? If you guys watch this program, look, I did right after the Smollett thing happened. We looked at Kamala Harris's chart. We looked at Cory Booker's chart. We sized them up against Jesse Smollett's chart. Remember that? And I said that she was involved, and you could see the connection in the charts between Smollett and Kamala Harris, and even with Cory Booker. And I have a thought that Jesse Smollett and Cory Booker know each other really well. That's my thought. Okay. So, yeah, we talked about that. It was on here on the show, and then started to come out the connections between Harris and what's her name, Fox, the district attorney. Kamala Harris was her mentor. So we talked about that here in the show. Could he, they were planning that thing. That was a total Obama, Saul Alinsky kind of move. But it was really minor league, really, really minor league. Would that come back to haunt her? Maybe. I think something's going to happen to her. I think she's going to slip on a banana peel somewhere along the way, and it's not going to be fun to watch. Maybe for some people might be. What else? I just saw a video of Kamala Harris. Her answer, absolutely. We talked about that too. Okay. I seldom toot my own horn. Okay, you guys who watch this show, it's not what I do because I think it's distasteful, and I've seen too many people do a lot of horn tooting. But we talked about that like months ago, right? We talked about all that stuff with her dad and the Brown family and Jamaica. We got into it that night on that show. So, and you guys are all there. You're all part of it. So if there's one thing that you will find with this show, and again, I'm gonna just be straight up and honest, you will find cutting edge stuff, okay? And the reason you'll find cutting edge stuff is because I go out and I try to find it, because I know the people that come into the chat room dig it, right? And we're trying to, pull things apart and really find out what's driving these programs. So I put a lot of time and I invest in it. And you're going to find out, I'm sorry, you're going to find it out here on this show. And it's this group. Because I'm not doing this on my own. I mean, I think I probably could if I wanted to. I could sit down and I could do a video and I could talk about things astrologically. I could do that. A lot of people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we're interacting, right? We're interacting. Your consciousness, my consciousness, we're in this thing together real time, which is, I think is interesting. And I've always thought it's interesting. So, when we're going, when I'm, pulling something apart, you're right there. You're part of the experience. And we're all in it together. And this is kind of one mind. And we're all nodes, that are part of a larger kind of mind. It's not the mind, but maybe it's a group mind. And we're all, sort of evolving and creating these group minds, which I think is kind of interesting. All right, what do we have? Interactive real-time truths. I would agree with that. Can't always be here, though. I'd love to see your work, Rhonda. Oh, Rhonda's got some stuff going on. What is Rhonda doing? Are the politicians going to make basic income as well? Or just this revenue as usual? Look, I agree, Mr. Cruz. I agree with you on that. But we're going to have to change the model somehow. We're going to have to re-engineer this thing, because when automation comes in, it's really going to be a game changer. It's going to be a game changer. And even the crappy, make jobs that people have had and are holding on to, those will go away too. So something's going to have to change. You know, and I'm not talking about a Georgia Guidestone kind of change, because that's not what we want. What else do we have? Let's see. So I just, you know, like there's some nice words being shared in the chat room. And I just want to, you know, say that, again, this is kind of a collective affair, and that we're all connected as a part of it. And that's why it happens this way in the way that it does. I don't think it can happen any other way. I just don't. I couldn't do this just staring into this camera, just talking about shit. It'd be different. Might be able to do something, be different. Okay. So I'm working on my website. It's a real Mercury retrograde kind of moment. I paid somebody to kind of do a facelift, and it's a bad facelift. I got to tell you, really bad facelift. So I got to get in there and fix it. So I'm working on my robertphoenix.com site, and I had to really kind of retrofit it today just to make it functional again in some ways. So I apologize for the hodgepodginess, but you can still go in and get a reading right now. And you could also go in and sign up for the big events that we're having here in October if you want to be a part of it. That's going to happen here in the Hill Country. And there's information on my website. Let me put see if I can put the link into the chat room here. Give me one sec. Give me uno momentito. Come on now. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about what we're doing here in October, this little link that I'm gonna throw up here is tell you more about it. Emily Moore is going to be there. Heather Elin from Astrology Well Heather looks like she's coming, and let's see who else is going to be there. Oh, the Crimmies are going to be there. Glenn Streeter is going to be there, and my buddy Stephen Kent, who plays didgeridoo, is going to be there, and he's going to give us a private didgeridoo concert. I mean, you think, well, what can a guy do with a didgeridoo? Trust me, Stephen is a wizard. He's a magician, and if you've never experienced a Stephen Kent concert, you will be blown away, and you'll be touched by the power of the didgeridoo in a way that nobody else does in the world. And what I love about Stephen is that he doesn't claim he's a healer. He doesn't claim he's an Aboriginal. He claims that he is an artist who is doing interpretations with the didgeridoo, and he does them impeccably and spectacular. Stephen is a guy that has mastered circular breathing, and he can basically play a didgeridoo and a percussion instrument all at the same time. It's amazing to watch. So he's going to be there. We're going to have a lot of fun. Check out the link. I know it's Mercury retrograde. I get it. I get it. If you want to wait till after Mercury retrograde, that's up to you. So it's up to you. I'd like for you to sign up. I don't think it would be terrible. Let's put it that way. But if you want to wait, I get it. At the very least, let me just tell you that the airfares are pretty cheap right now to get to Texas. Just letting you know. Okay. All right. I'm going to get on out of here. Let me just do a quick check-in with you guys. Oh, she's doing silk hummingbirds, Rhonda. Nice. Blockchain and AI is horrendous. Mr. Cruz, I don't want a job. I want a chance to work towards my goals. Good for you. They can keep the jobs. Actually, they can keep it all. You just need to vacate the offices that they hold now with someone else. You know, like, I think that there's a lot of validity to that. But not everybody's going to be able to do that. Not everybody. This is a challenge, right? There are people in our society that are they're challenged. They're challenged in terms of their goals, at times their ethics. At times, I mean, how many people are watching this broadcast and have to work with people in a work-related situation? And it's like, you know, a corporation. Like, how competent are those people? How much of those people really pull their own weight? None. Now, I think that everybody has something to offer. I really do. I know it sounds pie in the sky. I think everybody has something to offer. but it would take a major kind of reorientation for people to wrap their heads around it. In the meantime, I think we need to have some kind of transitionary kinds of technologies and transitionary types of new forms of empowerment on a personal level. That's what I think would be. That's why I like the maker culture, where you can actually use technology and natural products and create things in a new and different way. It's unfortunate though that Etsy, who's been a store and a portal for people creating that stuff, has decided that they're not going to allow any kind of sales of T-shirts that are anti-vaccination. This is really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. Anyway, that's what but I'm with you, Mr. Cruz, and I think that would be ultimately the goal for everybody. And I agree with you about who's running the show. I mean, come on. I just look at Mike Pompeo, and that guy is one of the least impressive people I've seen in a long time. Okay, if we break it, they will leave. If we build it, it will become something like that. Yes, I like English humor. Etsy effed up their algorithms. Yeah, man, Etsy screwed up. You know, the other thing, there's a guy by the name of Sayer G. You guys may know him. He was a client of mine, and super nice guy, really nice guy. And he was making massive headway with the whole vaccine thing. And he got shut down by MailChimp. They won't let him send out his emails. How messed up is that? Well, we'll take care of that. We're gonna create our own systems. We're gonna bulletproof some of this stuff. Don't worry about it. We're innovators, remember? That's what we do best. We innovate. Don't ever forget that. All right, I'm out of here. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay up on what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for joining me. Come on over to 15 Minutes of Flame tomorrow, right around 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, maybe a little bit earlier, so I can motivate. And come on over to robertphoenix.com and schedule a reading if you're into that. I'm here for you. In any case, have a wonderful Sunday night. It's always my pleasure. Take good care.